Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Sox Type Thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes on a Thirsty Thursday. Once again, we've been doing this a few times in a row. What do you got over there?
I got a delicious Miller Lite. It's a award-winning Pilsner. It's won the gold medal several times. I don't know if you're aware of that.
The award for swill. I, of course, am drinking my customary Surly Furious IPA. Delicious.
God, so crisp. Such a crisp, refreshing finish on this.
I think we've talked about this before. I will definitely drink a Miller Lite at a ballpark or a Bud Light at a ballpark. Any kind of beer tastes fantastic at a ballpark. But in my home, I am a snob. I'm a beer snob for sure.
We are doing a baseball podcast.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I get it. I like to be in the out of doors, I believe.
I love Miller Lite. If you need a sponsor, if you want to do a sponsorship, we're here.
We did lose our beer sponsor last year. Miller Lite, I'm sure, will be happy to step into the vacuum.
Yes, come on over, boys.
Well, this is like 2 weeks since our last podcast. Of course,
a lot of trades have happened.
Couple things have happened. we didn't miss much. Usually I'm the one taking a vacation on the trade deadline for a couple weeks. Last 2 years I did, inexplicably, but somehow this year you're the one that took the vacation on trade deadline week.
Ha ha.
So we're fine. You've got, I guess you have one more year where you can do this to even things up. But hopefully we can figure this out by next year, not to do it on the busiest day of the summer.
Schedule it at the same time and then nothing is lost.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of shit to talk about. Obviously, we've had a trade deadline come and go. All of our teams were affected in some ways. We've had many, we've had many other things happen. Of course, we have a Giants aesthetics that we need to talk about. We have a Cubs trade, back kind of an incestuous trade again with former members of the Tigers as well. I will definitely have to talk about my Tigers and how they were kind of the unfortunate show stealers of the trade deadline by not making a trade that should have happened. I'm gonna try to break that down. That might take a while, so we'll see how that goes. There's a lot of convoluted things that happen in that thing. But of course, the White Sox essentially went viral the whole time with multiple stories that the nation by storm.
Never not in the news at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know how to grab headlines.
Definitely not, and it's never positive.
Yeah, you've stayed very relevant somehow, but not in a positive light necessarily. No. So we have not one but two no-nos of the week to talk about. We were gone for 2 weeks, so we've got two no-nos to talk about. One involves a former Tiger, which is unreal. We have we kind of neglected shit we couldn't make up for a while. Some funny shit has definitely happened in the last few weeks. So got a few of those. And we have a very predictable asshole of the week to get to. So I think there will be no controversy in this nomination for our asshole of the week. So I say we go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, I get to continue to kick this off with my Giants, who have a nice 2.5 game lead in the wild card. But since we last left, I believe when we last did the last podcast, they were 2.5 games out. They have fallen to 6 games out of first.
Yikes.
The Dodgers are red hot. They're 8-2 in the last 10. The Giants are 5-5 in their last 10. And part of that has to do with what I would, if I was passing out a grade, I would give them an F for the trade deadline. I mean, at the same time, this is kind of like what we were talking about with the Cubs a few weeks ago. Like, maybe they are okay. And we'll talk about, you'll get more into that with the Cubs. Like, maybe they're okay with not making like any big moves because, for the Giants, they're with the team they've had in place. They're 10 games over 500 against teams who have winning records. They were in the hunt for the division. Everything was going fine. But, you also have to anticipate moves that are being made by the teams ahead of you to try and keep up, and they didn't. And
AJ Pollock, it's not
AJ
keeping
Pollock,
up.
fucking terrible, man. I mean, that to see him back with a team that I follow is
there's some personal baggage
painful
there for you as a former White Sox there. So
I mean, to even make a trade for a guy with a 46 OPS plus for the season is just pathetic.
I didn't realize he was having that bad of a year.
Yeah. And then they also got Mark Mathias, 30-year-old.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, 30-year-old journeyman who's most games played in a season has been like 30 games. That was between Milwaukee and Texas last year.
Is he a middle reliever?
No, he's a middle infielder.
Oh my God.
He's just fucking shit. Then
bench depth.
I guess. I mean, then they got Marquise Johnson, mediocre pitcher. Like, it just, none of it made sense. And there were trades that made sense, and it was dissected really well by Eric Cole around the Foghorn, and he
I like that. I haven't heard that before.
That's clever. He brought up 3 names that would have made perfect sense, and the Giants would have had the assets to pull it off. But I think the Giants are kind of like, we're looking at the bigger picture here, right? If we don't, if we don't go deep in the playoffs this year, it's not all lost because we have a really solid young nucleus. And how much of that do we really want to give up? But the fact that you are where you are, you can't, you don't know what's ever going to happen. So when you're close, you need to make moves. And, they had the assets to acquire Jordan Montgomery from the Cardinals. They whiffed on that one. They could have acquired Candelario that the Cubs acquired, and he would have been a much better addition than the schlubs they picked up to boost the offense. Or they even could have acquired Mark Canha. But because the Mets are looking to deal, obviously, because of their mess. But like, none of that happened. And maybe the team's a little let down, like we didn't make any moves, and they're kind of playing flat right now, and they find themselves 6 games out of first. I mean, like I said, September's a huge month for them. With the Cubs playing better now, that matchup now in Wrigley at the beginning of September could have wild card implications. That's huge. And then they end the season playing, I think I had mentioned they played the Dodgers like 7 times out of the last 10 games. So September is a huge fucking month. So, they're dealing with these guys keep going in and off of the IL. And like, again, just to rail on AJ Pollock, he went on the IL yesterday. He's played like 5 shitty games for them. It's probably a blessing he's on the IL, for Christ's sake. But like, it's just a little bit disappointing. And I'm kind of like in between in my disappointment because like I really didn't expect them to do much this year. But now that they're in it, I kind of wanted them to do something. Like one starting pitcher, one top of the road, middle top of the rotation starting pitcher would have gone a long way, and they just didn't make it happen. So I don't know. It's just a huge disappointment. So
it was a weird pitching market.
It was.
We'll definitely get into deeper as we get into the show. But yeah, I think that might explain part of it. But yeah, I didn't really hear about the Giants at all, except for the Pollock move, which I was understandably, I think, underwhelmed by, and you are too, apparently. So I didn't even hear about the other guys. So yeah, I guess I am kind of surprised the Giants didn't do a little more to maybe go for it, or a little bit more. Maybe not go for it all out, because I was arguing that the Cubs shouldn't go crazy either. But
well, yeah, I think they kind of played it the same way, and the Cubs are like, we got a really solid nucleus here.
Mm-hmm.
We have enough probably to, you know, continue to maybe win the division, because everyone was
The Cubs.
the Cubs, yeah.
And
you know, so let's not totally upset the balance, you know.
The Giants would be going for a wild card. They don't have division
they don't
aspirations.
I don't think at this point they don't. They did. They would have had it. Might have, or maybe they never did. Maybe they were just like.
That's what I'm getting at. I don't think they thought they were going to get the division. I thought they may, you know, like, think that they've got a reasonable shot at the wild card, but maybe they just decided we can get in the wild card, but what does that really mean? We're not going to really go nuts here and trade away future assets, or valuable future assets, to make a run that's going to be doomed to fail eventually. Maybe,
right. And I guess smart in the long term, just like when you're
it's frustrating though. I mean, when you're right there though.
Yeah. So, and they played the Dodgers tough all year, but I mean, who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's enough at the end of September. There could be injuries to the Dodgers that happen. You know,
it has happened before.
Yeah, it has happened before. So we'll see. But like I said, like my overall thoughts on the trade deadline for the Giants, just like very, very poorly done. But from a bigger picture standpoint, I guess they did the right thing. They didn't trade away any major top prospects to maybe, like you alluded to, Smitty, and I agree with you that, you know, they're thinking of it more of like, yeah, we'll get into the playoffs this year, but we're building for an extended playoff run.
Yeah,
that will reap better results than this one. So, but yeah, that's all I got for that. But I know you wanted to talk about do a little aesthetic segment on the newest sponsorship patch on the Giants uniform.
Yeah, we've got an early aesthetics in this show. Yeah, the Giants are the latest team to actually have a jersey advertisement on their sleeve. I believe it's Cruise, like, what is it? Automated electric vehicles. Like,
yeah, sounds terrifying.
Self-driving. Yeah. I've heard about this. That's a specific thing to San Francisco, being
right.
Silicon Valley. They've had self-driving cars there for quite some time. So I guess this is like a rideshare service, or technically it's like a taxi service with no driver. You just call up an autonomous vehicle. It shows up at your door and you get in and trust it with your life.
Yeah. The Giants, you know, they felt like the partnership made sense because of how it's servicing the San Francisco area, and a lot of, according to their president and CEO, Larry Bauer, that or Bayer, they you know, a lot of fans take it to the game. So it seemed like a natural partnership, because, you know, it wouldn't just be this random nonsense.
It would be random if it happened in Chicago, but it's certainly not random there.
But I think you wanted to get into the fact that they actually worked with Cruise to, like, integrate it into the uniform. This is almost going to turn into a City Connect jersey story. Let me go through the details. So the patch pays homage to the iconic Oracle Park archways, a notably distinctive architectural element located in the right field wall, along with the port walk on the shores of McCovey Cove.
Yeah, I'll describe it a little bit. It would be a typical, just a rectangle or square patch, but the top is an arch, which, if you've ever been to Oracle Park, there's archways everywhere in there.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. I think my overarching thought on this is it's really cool what they did to integrate not only the Cruise brand, but integrate it with the Giants brand, which I haven't seen before. Like all the teams that have done this, and you don't see it in advertising very much necessarily, but all the teams that have done this just put a rectangle patch or whoever their sponsor is, just plaster it right on the sleeve. I guess the exception might be the Tigers, where they have the partnership with Meyer, where they actually changed Meyer brand colors to Tigers colors, which integrates it pretty nice, but it's still just a boring rectangle essentially. But I thought they did a really cool job. I would never have guessed to incorporate the archways of the stadium itself, and it's beyond the integrating the colors together, which I thought they did a really cool job of as well.
Yeah, and then the colors are supposed to like represent a sunset because it worked out that way. So
yeah,
I like when you sent me that, and I was reading it, I was like, oh god, it's like a fucking City Connect thing again.
I haven't watched any Giants games since I haven't. Have you watched? And is it obnoxious? You've been on vacation, so maybe you haven't seen much. But
no, I mean I've seen some highlights and I've noticed it, but I haven't found anything really obnoxious except for the Astros with that.
I was going to say the Astros
Oxy.
Is it Oxy?
Yeah, like the advertising Oxycontin or something. I don't know. Oxy.
I think it's the Mets or somebody else has like ADT or something. Just an enormous blue patch. It just doesn't flow with the rest of the jersey at all. It's just as obnoxious as everyone thought that jersey ads would be. But I think the Cruise ad is the antithesis of that. I think they worked really hard to make it work with the classic Giants jersey.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's and at the end of the day, like I don't really care if someone puts advertising on the jersey, to be honest, like a patch that if it's done in a, as long as it doesn't affect, as long as it doesn't change anything that's on the uniform already, you know what I mean? If it's just in addition to it versus like, now we're suddenly going to take off one of our sleeve patches to do advertising. That's a different story.
Well, some teams have already done that. I think we talked about that before in anticipation. Like the Cubs have always had the National League logo on their sleeve, and that has suddenly been missing. And I don't think a whole lot of people notice that. Not that it's necessary to be on there, but that has been missing for a while. So to add in an advertisement eventually will be a little less jarring, since they're not removing the baby bear stomping through the middle of the sea or something like that. But
exactly. That's what and that's even more what I'm talking about. Like on the Sox on the away jerseys, I think they have the Sox on one of the sleeves.
Yeah, and then you've got the diamond with the Sox in the center.
So like if something like that was removed to put advertising on, then I'd start to have a problem with it. But
you're coming up next at some point. I mean, I would think within the next year, you guys are going to have an ad patch of some sort. So,
yeah, I'm just hoping the Cubs go with El Burrito Mexicano patch.
I'm all for that.
I mean, come on, that's got to be it.
Right there on Addison, right next to the stadium, the hole in the wall, best burrito joint in the city, maybe in the world.
Oh my God, so many good times there. So many good times, late night good times there. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to give it a double middle fingers up for this jersey patch. I don't know if we need to do that for a jersey patch,
but it's thoughtful. It's a very well thought out patch. And I would also agree with you that the Tigers getting Meyer to agree, like I don't even notice that patch really at all.
That's what I was. I meant to say that. I haven't
like
noticed
perfect integration.
Yeah, they did this several months ago now, and I don't even think about it anymore. It's a little more obvious on the road jersey because it's a navy blue patch.
Yeah.
On the road grays, so you notice it a little bit. But at home, which is that jersey is
sacred.
Very sacred in my mind, many Tigers fans' minds. I don't even notice it anymore. So if they can get away with that, then I think it's going to be okay. If teams are mindful about things like that, we've seen some are not already. But All right, we got an aesthetics out of the way already on this podcast.
Woo!
And you didn't roll your eyes or anything at me, so this is
No.
perfect.
Yeah, I'll start rolling my eyes at you in the next segment.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I've got something set up for you, queued up perfectly for that. But well, the trade deadline came and went for the Cubs, and they made a more significant move than I thought they were going to. I was thinking they would stand pat, maybe make a minor move for a middle reliever, preferably a left-handed reliever, which they have none right now in the bullpen, unless you count Drew Smiley, who was just demoted from the starting rotation into the bullpen.
Yeah, yikes.
I did think that they might go for a corner infielder, which they were in desperate need of some depth there. I didn't think they'd go for Jeimer Candelario. I thought that might be out of their price range because he would have been the best corner infielder on the market, but they got him. And it's a reunion in several ways. It's for the Cubs, of course. He was originally with the Cubs, Cubs prospect. That got traded to my Tigers in the 2017, I believe it was the Alex Avila, maybe Justin Wilson trade way back when. So, so it's again a very incestuous situation where Jeimer comes back into the fold, and my God, it could not have already proven to be the greatest trade of all time, almost in these first 2 weeks. He's got as a Cub now, he has a 1268 OPS. He is 16 for 33 in his time already. I think he had 8 hits in his first 2 games.
Yeah, it's been insane. Just
a perfect fit. He's a good guy. He definitely fits in the clubhouse. He fits in on the field with production. So I mean, that's a grand slam trade right there already. So impressive, or at least a fruitful move at this point. All for it. I thought the Cubs might do a little bit more. They did add a middle reliever, Jose Cuas, I think is how you pronounce his last name, from the Royals, is what was kind of confusing with that. And his numbers aren't that great on the surface, but his numbers over the last couple months have been lights out. So I think that's what they're thinking for a little bit of bullpen depth. And he's actually been pretty decent with Cubs so far in these 10 days or so. So, but yeah, essentially, minor deals. Candelario is bigger than I thought they would move. Obviously, that's working out great so far. So, I mean, what do? I've got to give the Cubs an A so far. We'll see how that plays out if you're going to give grades out for the deadline. But I had a larger question. This is where you're gonna roll your eyes. But suddenly, the Cubs are potentially the best team in baseball. And I'll lay out my argument. I want to get your thoughts on this. But since June 9th, they have the second best record in baseball, believe it or not. We were talking about them as being one of the middling teams. Just what do we do with the trade deadline? Should they sell? Should they buy? Well, really what's happened is they're one of the best teams in all of baseball. The only team with a better record over the last 2 months is the Atlanta Braves. And you might have noticed that the Cubs actually beat the Atlanta Braves in a series this past weekend.
Oh, they did. But then what did they follow that up with?
Well, yeah, I know you love that. If only the Cubs had actually gotten a base hit in the 9th inning with runners in scoring position with nobody out, we'd have a little different narrative about that Mets series. But
no, it's not what you could have done. It's what you did.
You're right. But the Cubs have also, since June 9th, scored more runs than anyone in baseball, which I was shocked when I looked that up. By the way, I've heard these stats, but I confirmed them all. I found a new website. Maybe you already knew about this, and maybe everybody knows about it. It's called Stats Muse.
Yeah, you just punch in what you want, and it spits it out at you.
It's nuts. I just found it this week, and I forgot how I even got to it, but I can't close it out of my browser because I don't want to forget about it. Like I don't think I will now that I've recorded it, but I've typed in so many different things, and it's got to be artificial intelligence or something because it generates graphs immediately for your query.
Yeah.
There's like animated pictures, like cartoon drawings of the player you're talking about.
It's fucking crazy, man.
It's unreal. So if you're looking for to get deep into stats or looking for a time frame or whatever, check out Stats Muse. I'm sure there's probably several different ones, but that's the one I stumbled upon. So that's where I'm pulling a lot, and I will be pulling more and more numbers throughout the year on. But that's cool. You already knew about it. So June 9th keeps coming up. Cubs really started their run with June 9th. It's also exactly 2 months ago, essentially, and the season is essentially 4 months old. So that's half the season now. That the Cubs have the second best record in baseball, and they've scored the most runs. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a leading question, but I'm going to say, are the Cubs the best team in baseball right now? You're going to say no.
Yeah, I'll go with no.
So I guess the next question is, who would be the best team in baseball, or how would you quantify that? Whoever just has the best record overall?
No, I think you have to dig into like all the numbers. I think the Cubs are the best team in baseball for the last 2 months, I guess. You can't argue that. You can't argue that. You can't argue that from an offensive standpoint anyway.
Okay. You're way ahead of me, because that's what I was going to try to get you to agree to by the end of this. So.
I would say offensively they are. I would say they're becoming offensive in pitching right now and starting pitching. Their starting pitching is starting to decline. So, like, as a well-rounded game, like, they were getting everything for a little bit there. Like, Stroman was lights out. Steele was lights out. Steele's ERA just keeps rising, but he keeps winning ball games because he lets up 6 runs. The Cubs score 12 runs or whatever it be. They score enough.
Steele?
Yeah, Steele let up 5 the other day, and the Subs, he had 5 earned runs. The start before.
Oh, you know what happened? Because his ERA is still under 3. It's like 2.5, I think. I know exactly the game you're talking about. They actually made a scoring change 2 weeks later and made it an error. So those are all unearned runs. So that came off of his ERA. So I think you're seeing, because if you look at his ERA right now, it's still I think 2.6 maybe.
Well, yeah, but it's 2.6 because at one point it was 1 something.
Well, okay, but
yeah, what I'm saying is if you went on and looked at his numbers, and I think I brought this up the last podcast, his ERA over I don't have the current numbers, but his ERA on our last podcast had gone up to it was like 4.86 over the last month.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared to defend Justin Steele because he's may have had 1 or 2 bad outings recently, but he's been pretty damn good. I know he won his last outing, but
and then you just had someone demoted to the bullpen from your starting rotation.
That's a problem. That's Drew Smiley. Yeah,
I would continue to say that Atlanta, just as is from a rounded team standpoint, is the best team in baseball. But
that's why I was so impressed the Cubs actually took a series from them.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that at all.
Cubs are very good. They're a very good home team, though. That's on the road where they start to struggle, which they have more games on the road to play remaining on their schedule than they do at home.
They do still somehow have the easiest schedule remaining in all of baseball, which I was surprised by, because they're on the road and they have more. No, that must be it. Yeah, they have more road games than home games. So
yeah.
But somehow it's the easiest schedule. So I thought that
it's weird, because I just saw something the other day that said the White Sox had the easiest schedule. So
it's fluid, so that might change per series or whatever. So
yeah, I mean that's hard to quantify too, because if they just do that based on overall record. Again, someone might say, like, because the Cubs are, what are they, 4 games over 500 right now? You might go like, oh well, their overall record is, it's whatever, a 533 winning percentage or something like that. But so that makes so-and-so's schedule a little bit weaker because they're just a few games over 500. But it doesn't take into the fact that they've been playing like gangbusters for 2 months now.
Right.
So that shit just drives me nuts. Right. I mean,
drawing an arbitrary line in the sand and pulling stats.
Yeah, I mean, just that the strength of schedule thing is hard to measure, because one thing Hawk Harrelson always got right: it's not who you play, it's when you play them.
I think we say it probably every other episode we bring that up somehow.
I mean, it's so true. Like the Sox took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, but the Yankees are like beaten down at this point. They are not the Yankees from the beginning of the season.
I would think your Sox would be even more beaten down, but somehow not. You've rallied.
No, we have an over 500 record since we traded away all those deadbeats, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I hate that Giolito and Berger guys. I mean,
but I gotta say, like right now, I'm eating a little crow on my assessment of the Cubs of what I did to you on the last episode.
This is why I'm bringing it up.
I'm gonna admit right now, it doesn't mean my ultimate statement won't be true that they won't make the playoffs. But you know what? Now looking at it, I think your assessment was more correct than mine, because if they can sign Cody Bellinger, which I could see him wanting to come back, because why would he want to go somewhere else and risk losing the magic that the Cubs have tapped into for him?
That's a great point.
It is a great point.
I think I made it last week.
Well, yeah, no, yeah. I'm just building off of what you said. I'm agreeing with you for one of the few times, but actually we agree way more than we ever used to, folks. So like
that's not last episode. So
no, it was last episode was fun, but I was also
you were hammered drunk.
I was drunk last episode, so you get a little bit of a different take, but having watched the Cubs, like looked in on the Cubs and seeing how they've been playing, and even though it's at home, taking 2 out of 3 from a great Atlanta team, like, you know what? They are building something good there, and kudos to Hoyer. It doesn't mean anything. We don't know what next year is going to bring, but if they can re-sign Bellinger and this team can play like they've been playing, and that's how they start off next year, but continue it, don't have like a major fall off in May when they went 10-18. Like they could already be back in the conversation as like the shortest, like one of the shorter turnarounds from what looked like was going to be a much longer process.
Yeah, it's crazy because you're making all my points for me. It's crazy how what a difference 2 weeks makes almost. But when you look at the full picture, it's been those 2 months that we're actually talking about. That it just sort of snuck up on me, maybe snuck up on a lot of people. Of course, they went on a massive winning streak for the last 2 weeks against under 500 competition. But I don't mean to disparage your White Sox anymore, but that included the Sox and the Cardinals. But then they
included a split with the White Sox.
Was it?
No,
I don't think so.
I'm joking. I thought I could fucking trick you right there.
Well, see, I can't see your face right now because of different things, so I wasn't sure what the fuck's going on. But I'm like, that was not a split, but yeah, I mean, then the Cubs followed that up by winning 3 out of 4 against the division leading at the time Cincinnati Reds, and then of course the aforementioned series win over the Braves, which kind of legitimized their recent run. So I just thought it was amazing how everyone's perception has kind of shifted over the last couple of weeks since we've been gone. I was definitely teetering on the edge whether they were going to go for it or not, or if they were good or not. That has definitely tipped one way, even though it was happening underneath my nose and I didn't even realize it. But of course, yeah, you brought up earlier the series loss to the Mets was I didn't see that coming. It was the game, especially the game last night. That was just a frustrating loss that they could have easily won. Just stop pitching to Pete Alonso. Like, what are we doing? He had 4 home runs in the series, like, and most of them were just meatballs. He crushed. It's like he was hitting tough pitches. So I don't fully understand that strategy. It would be the Mets that's a fucked up franchise, of course, that we made fun of for years, but it's a fairly simple game plan. Just don't let Pete Alonso beat you, and they absolutely let him beat them. So confusing, but whatever. But yeah, that conversation went a lot differently than I thought. I thought I was gonna have to throw a lot more numbers, but you were making my points for me. So it's amazing what a difference a vacation will make.
Yeah. So just real quick to touch upon. So yeah, you're right. The Justin Steele numbers for July got changed because they took all those.
It was huge. Yeah.
But in August, he has a 4.76 ERA. So
Does he? Okay.
That's
that'd be one start.
2 games.
Is it 2? Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I believe the last 2 starts he's let up like 5 runs or so. But the Cubs are scoring so many runs it just gets glossed over. He's 2-0 with a 4.76 ERA. So yeah. But anyway.
Well,
just wanted to hammer my fucking point home.
Yeah, wow. There you go.
Jesus.
Well, I think I'm gonna if we can move on from the Cubs or
yeah, I'm more than happy to. Yeah.
I gotta move over to my Detroit Tigers.
The biggest news of the trade deadline.
Yeah,
the trade that never happened.
Yeah, that the irony is they were the talk of the trade deadline, yet they didn't make the trade of the deadline. That seemed to be right there, and the confusion on what the fuck happened there. I think that's going to lead to an older segment of ours, some hardball deep throat, investigative journalism to figure out how the hell this trade didn't happen. I got just some history here. I got into Twitter, which I guess we have to call X now. Actually, I have to change our little symbols here. I've got the Twitter logo for our Twitter handle.
Will you get on that, for Christ's sake?
Gotta switch that to X. I think I'm never calling it X, even though I just did.
I know it's Twitter.
It'll be Twitter. Probably in like 3 months, I'll switch back, and it's all a ruse. But I got into Twitter strictly because of the trade deadline about probably 10 years ago, because it is the perfect way to follow what the fuck's going on. You get real news in real time from real journalists. I had no interest in Twitter before that, but I had to know what was happening with my Tigers and Cubs. And
think of all the joy it's brought us with Bob's bad tweets.
He's been okay with trade deadline stuff. He gets deep in the weeds during the season, but I haven't noticed him being completely off on trade deadline accuracy. But
he did though say that Lance Lynn was a done deal to the Rays. So
that's right. I forgot about that.
So anyway.
But yeah, Jeff Passan is somebody I trust implicitly, even though he's doing this from the injured list. He's got a broken back right now, but he's still breaking stories. Buster Olney's another one. There's plenty that I follow. But I was furiously refreshing my Twitter throughout the afternoon on deadline day.
Same freaking thing on my phone.
I was wondering because you're on vacation, so I didn't know if you were gonna have time.
I kept like looking.
Well, it was a really interesting deadline day. There'd been significant moves throughout the weekend, which was cool, and it didn't all just like land on one day, but lots of things were happening, of course. The story I kept hearing, and for the Tigers at least, what I was interested in is how the pitching market was going to finally loosen up. There hadn't been many pitchers traded, and of course the Tigers had Michael Lorenzen, who did get traded, which we'll talk about in a bit. And Eduardo Rodriguez, of course, who would have been the larger prize, but
the centerpiece.
Yes, the whole idea that I kept reading was that Justin Verlander was essentially holding up the entire pitching market. Like once he moved someplace, that was going to open up everything for everybody else, and that proved to be true because I think it was, maybe 2 o'clock. Verlander finally got traded to Houston, which makes perfect sense. And eventually Lorenzen got traded to the Phillies for their number 5 prospect, Hao-Yu Lee, second base prospect. Sounds like kind of a utility guy, kind of a depth piece. I think he was their number 10 prospect, but he automatically becomes the Tigers' number 5 prospect, which is kind of surprising. Or maybe I got that backwards, but so not a bad return for Lorenzen since he was certainly a rental. I thought he was, kind of outperforming what he would be evenly. I'll be proven wrong. I was proven wrong by that, which we'll get to shortly. Unbelievable, but I thought they sold high on him, and I thought it was really nice. It worked out perfectly. He was as good as he's ever been in his career at the trade deadline, so I didn't have a problem with what they got. I think I'd add more to that after the events of last evening if we could, but But the real story was what I was waiting for and furiously refreshing Twitter for was Eduardo Rodriguez news. And about an hour before the deadline, I see a tweet from Jeff Passan. And it said, I just started reading it. It said LA Dodgers and Detroit Tigers. And I almost started to hit the like button before I even read the next word. I was on the verge of. Unfortunately, the next words were deal scuttled after Eduardo Rodriguez exercises no trade clause. And immediately, myself and everyone in the fucking baseball world is like, what the fuck just happened? How could they start working on a deal to, certainly the Dodgers are a reputable franchise. The Tigers with a brand new general manager, but has a pedigree that you would think he's an intelligent executive that knew what he was doing. How could they get this far into the deadline, negotiate a deal, and yet not have the player's permission, who has a no trade clause, not have his permission to actually pull off the deal? And it's just kind of it ended up being an unfortunate way that the tweet was phrased. It was true. There was nothing false about the phrase, but the way it came out, it was that Scott Harris was a buffoon. He tried to negotiate this whole deal and never got Eduardo's permission to waive his no trade clause. And that was the narrative throughout the evening on that, I believe it was Monday night. The only one that spoke about it was Scott Harris later that evening in his post-trade deadline news conference. And unfortunately, he really couldn't say much about it. And with hindsight, you know why. He couldn't really get into details with all the questions being asked. No one understood how he could get this far without having permission. And the way it actually turns out is, of course, he had spoken to Eduardo Rodriguez about his no trade clause. Of course, he had agreed to, in certain terms, to waive that if it went to the right team or in the right situation. And it's interesting because, of course, Eduardo had a deal signed with the Tigers by Al Avila last year for a 5-year deal for $77 million. He negotiated an opt-out after the second year, which is this year, which is what's made Erod an obvious trade candidate for a team that's not going to the playoffs. But it also included a no trade clause. I knew that. Everybody knew that. There's no way Scott Harris didn't know that. So, but it was just very confusing and frustrating at the time that 1 hour before the trade deadline, you hear the star trade commodity is not moved just because he didn't exercise, or he did exercise his no trade clause. So that was Monday night. The Tuesday after, Eduardo Rodriguez actually happened to be a starting pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. I thought he'd be a starting pitcher potentially for the LA Dodgers, but that was not the case. But they announced he would be speaking to the media after his game. And I went into the game. He's actually on my fantasy team, which I was thinking about dumping him because I was sure after everything that happened the previous day, he would be a basket case and just have a terrible performance. And he was lights out. I think he ended up giving up 2 runs over 6 or 7. He was as good as he had been previously in the best parts of his season so far. So I was kind of surprised by that and happy about that. I mean, because it worked for my Tigers and my fantasy team. But I was really, really watching that game just to get through the game so we could get to the goddamn interview where he actually explains what the fuck happened. And because he's the one that holds all the cards. He
Right.
knew what was going on. It's not up to the Tigers to explain it. It's not up to the Dodgers to explain it. It was up to him. The reason Scott, I was assuming later in the evening, the first night, is that he couldn't talk about things because he didn't want to throw his player under the bus. He didn't want to throw the Dodgers under the bus in case they, did something weird that he wasn't ready for or he wasn't happy about or something. He just didn't know at that point. But finally, Erod is interviewed after the game, and it was cool that he stood up there and answered all the questions. I wasn't sure that he would. Unfortunately, didn't really answer them in a genuine way. I didn't think. I thought he was disingenuous. In fact, when he was asked about what happened with the deal with the Dodgers, he just said, "I don't control anything that happens outside the lines," meaning he only has control over what happens on the field in his pitching, and that's literally false. I mean, he's the one who has the no trade clause. He's the one that has the opt out. So he holds all the cards. So he controls everything that happened outside the lines in this. So I thought that was a really weak explanation. Some players can get away with that don't have no trade clauses or opt out clauses that they control, but they leave, they don't have control over that, so they leave everything up to their agent and figure things out. That was certainly not the case. The other disingenuous thing he said is they asked him if he was going to opt into his contract after the season to stay with the Tigers, which is of supreme interest right now because the Tigers just lost the chance to trade away a piece at this deadline that could have brought back very, very interesting returns from one of the strongest farm systems in all of baseball, which we'll never know what could have been. So we're all trying to figure out what, if at least we could hold on to him, maybe get something of value out of this contract. His response is that he did not have a magic ball or a crystal ball to tell the future if he was going to stay or not. It's like, dude, you have the opt out. You can choose to stay. So he's acting like he's powerless over all the events that transpired, and it makes me really frustrated. Like how he thinks he can just say those things and we're gonna believe that. So it makes me not trust him. And beyond that, I need to get into history here. In a part that I missed, another narrative that was flying around, besides blaming Scott Harris before more things came to light, is people were starting to blame Eduardo Rodriguez's wife. I believe her name is Catherine, and she's a public figure of sorts. She's a Instagram influencer, I think.
Oh, really?
But she also is part of the news in ways because of an incident that you may recall from last season, where yes. Eduardo Rodriguez had to leave the team for a total of almost 2 months. Within the first year of his 5-year deal, he had left the team. At first, it was a ridiculously confusing story. He essentially went AWOL. It wasn't reported for quite a while that the Tigers even knew where he was. I believe it was a week or maybe even 2 weeks before there were reports saying that we are finally in communication with Eduardo. We know he's okay, at least, that was a legitimate question at that time. Was he abducted? Like, what the fuck happened? It turns out he was dealing with some marital issues, which is understandable. I mean, we've seen it with Ben Zobrist. He had similar crazy issues with his wife at the end of his Cubs career, where he had to take time off, but nobody knew what was going on for a while, and essentially it helped torpedo one of many things that helped torpedo the Tigers 2022 season is we had no access to Eduardo Rodriguez for 2 months. So she was a known commodity in that we knew there were some marital issues. So people surmised from that information from last year and then the strange turn of events at this trade deadline that, well, Scott Harris got Eduardo's permission previously to negotiating with the Dodgers to waive the no trade clause, but they didn't get his wife's permission. And she nixed the deal because she didn't want to go to Los Angeles. She wanted to stay on the East Coast or closer to the East Coast at least. That was reckless speculation. I actually saw some regular journalists throw that out there. So it actually gain traction over the night. But with plausible reasons. I mean, we've seen there are issues that have affected the Tigers directly with his marriage. So it doesn't seem fair, but it is in this case. So what really happened though, and what took this is where we get to the hardball deep throat, the investigative journalist. It was not me. I'm not going to take credit for this, but of course, it was the most trustworthy of all baseball journalists. Ken Rosenthal finally on Wednesday dug up the fact that Eduardo Rodriguez and his agent, I forgot his name, George Mateo, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Were demanding the Dodgers give him an extra year and $20 million onto his deal.
It's unbelievable when I read that. I was just like, what the fuck?
Previous to that revelation, his agent, Mateo or whoever it is, released a statement, defending Eduardo, but saying they were working on a deal, but they simply ran out of time. And it's like, that is not an excuse that any agent can use in this situation. That is admitting incompetence if it was a time issue that scuttled this deal. Mind you, if we're really literally talking about time, there was still 1 hour left in the trade deadline before that deal was, that deal was scuttled 1 hour before the actual deadline. So there was time. There's ways to get things done. We've seen even the incompetent Al Avila make a deal with 3 seconds to go at the deadline for Justin Verlander to the Astros back in 2017, which didn't do very well for the Tigers, although we still have Jake Rogers from that.
And they just have to alert the office too.
I don't know the protocol, if there has to be a fax sent out or how it works these days.
It used to be they used to fax in that in principle, blah 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 and blah blah blah.
I'm assuming that can be as easy as a text or a phone call or anything now. So,
but then the final paperwork can come in and we saw it this year actually a lot. There were deals announced hours after the trade deadline that things had gone through, but the paperwork hadn't been to MLB office yet to make it official.
So clearly that's the other side of this. Eduardo's agent, I think, is being very disingenuous as well. But when it's revealed that, and no one's spoken about this other than the reporting that I can see from Ken Rosenthal, that he asked for the 1 extra year on his deal and the $20 million. So what that implies is that the Dodgers asked him to waive his opt-out in addition already to his no trade clause. So on the surface, I think that's fairly reasonable in a way for Eduardo to ask for something in return, because he's giving up not only his no trade clause, because he said he put the Dodgers right on his list, but he also is opting into the final 3 years, which he loses all his leverage in a way, or the opportunity to become a free agent again. So to ask for something back isn't necessarily out of bounds in my mind, at least. So I'm not going to hold him to the fire for that. The weirdness comes from the idea that a single year or a total of $20 million would completely wipe out this deal. I'm wondering how the Tigers couldn't have stepped in and say, let's make this work. We will cover 10 million of that $20 million. How the Dodgers decided, well, fuck this. We can't possibly afford another $20 million, which is actually below market value for a pitcher right now for a year.
Right.
That would be the end of his deal. So I'm still baffled by that part of it. Like, there, at least there's some clarity, and I think there's some definite. The blame is on Eduardo. It's not Scott Harris's incompetence. I can't believe it would be Andy Freeman's negligence or stubbornness that stopped this deal. There's still one piece missing that I'm not fully understanding. We may never know the final details for, but at least it brought some clarity. I think Ken Rosenthal is really who brought the clarity to it. I'm not sure if everyone followed all the details all the way through. That's why I wanted to chronicle everything in this probably annoying, exhaustive manner. I wanted to get all these thoughts out there to at least put most of it to rest in my mind, and hopefully anyone who gives a shit listen to this podcast. That this comes down to Eduardo, and really since the weird shit that happened in his first year, his explanations and not really taking ownership of the situation this past week really makes me nervous about this guy's character. The thing is, he keeps shoving. He had another fantastic outing yesterday, so he's not letting it affect anything on anything of his performance on the field. He's going to work for the Tigers still, and he keeps saying he loves it in Detroit, and that was part of his explanation why he didn't waive his no trade clauses, because they love it in Detroit somehow, and he's very comfortable there. And we'll see. I mean, if he opts in, then he was not being disingenuous, and he was being forthright. But somehow I don't believe it. In the way he's kind of stepping around the issue, I'd be shocked if he's a Tiger next year, which means Tigers fans will always be thinking about those 4 or 5 prospects that could have come from the embarrassingly rich Dodgers system. I think your White Sox took advantage of that system in a couple of trades we'll talk about here, but I think you're pretty happy with what you got from those same Dodgers. So it'll always be tantalizing to Tigers fans what could have been. And I'm going to blame Erod for that not happening.
Do you think there's a narrative that went around after all this came out that Scott Harris was negligent in that he hadn't worked any sort of like backup deals, knowing that there was still some negotiating that needed to be worked out?
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's still a narrative. What I believe happened was Verlander was the Dodgers' number 1 option. That was their plan A. And when he went to Houston, plan B was already in place, and that was Eduardo Rodriguez. And they had everything worked out. He agreed to waive his no trade clause. I believe at the end, either the Dodgers demanded that he opt in to the final 3 years, or he had already agreed to that, but then he upped his demands and that he wanted another year and $20 million. So that's where it's confusing. To the idea that Scott Harris was negligent and didn't have a plan B, I would say you could argue the same thing in this situation for Andrew Friedman, that he didn't have a plan B either, because they didn't make another deal with an hour to go. So they were both completely caught off guard by it, and no one was prepared for it. So it's unfortunate that this is Scott Harris's first trade deadline, and that's why that narrative has legs, because he doesn't have a track record that suggests he knows what the fuck he's doing, where the Dodgers definitely do, and they were caught flat-footed as well. So that it could be that Harris fucked this up completely, but I tend to, I'm going to be an apologist for him until I know for a fact he's as incompetent as Al Avila was. But I don't think so, mainly because the Dodgers were caught just as flat-footed, and it was just a bizarre situation that no one's really figured out. But
that's a fair assessment that I'm surprised other people haven't really made, in the fact that if the team, the Dodgers knew more than probably Scott Harris at that point. I'm sure he was checking in on how things were transpiring.
Yeah, because
since they're the one working the deal, they would know that, okay, well, we got to make a decision on if we want to pay him this $20 million or not. And the fact that unless it came out so late in the deal, like,
again,
it's just so bizarre. We'll never know. We can
the
all
hour
speculate.
left. The hour left drives me crazy. Yeah.
You're right, because that story broke with an hour left to the trade deadline, and everyone was like, what the fuck?
I'll never forget that moment.
And I also think that's why people think, well, what were you doing, Scott Harris? You still had an hour to work the phones, but he's not going to go on. He's not going to go on and say, well, I worked the phone for an hour and couldn't get a trade done. No one's going to tell you what really happened.
Yeah, and he may have done it. He also said he wasn't going to give him away for nothing, because now the play is.
That's the other thing. Like the next thing you'd want to do is only negotiate with the teams he would agree to go to, so you didn't run into this again. But maybe they didn't have what was good for the Tigers. So
I think and another explanation for that might be that it was obvious that Eduardo wasn't going to be reasonable or whatever, that there was no opportunity for his camp did not want him to be traded at that point. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of. And, maybe I'm certainly not an insider. I'm playing the role of Woodward and Bernstein here. I'm not an investigative journalist, but I'm playing off of other people's work and trying to connect dots. That's the only thing I can think of how this would work. And it all just points back to Erod, not to incompetence of anyone's general manager, which we like to blame for in a lot of levels on all of our teams over the years. So it's just not the case, I don't think, in this case. So, well, the only other thing I want to talk about with the Tigers is the story of Miguel Cabrera's final year. He's continuing to rack up milestones. He had 3 hits last night alone. The coolest thing about him getting hits at this point is, especially late in the game, he gets pulled for a pinch runner, and he gets to get the applause of the fans. He gets his moment every time. And he's been doing that a lot lately. Late inning hits, gets pulled for a pinch runner, gets the standing ovation as he comes out the field. But last night was even sweeter, as his 3 hits not only put him past Tony Gwynn on the all-time hits list, put him past Robin Yount as well, to make him he's in the top 20. I believe he's 19 overall in the all-time hits list. So he's got a chance to pass a few more this season. It's just been fun. This is something I did not expect, considering his precipitous demise over the last 5 years or so. Just no production, mainly injuries, and just a guy that's past his prime in general. I didn't think he would have much joy this season, or Tigers fans would have much joy watching him. It'd be a frustrating experience. It's been the opposite. As he's had a blast, he's been getting his recognition from teams across the league. He's also not an embarrassment by any way on the field. He's getting his hits, and it's super cool. And he's getting rewarded that. The fans are getting rewarded by that every time you hear him pass another milestone. So it's getting to the point where people are really recognizing, I think, what a treasure Miguel Cabrera has been for us all to witness, but especially Tigers fans. Over this, I think it was close to 2 weeks ago during our break, the Tigers were in Miami, and the Marlins went nuts for him. They had a Venezuelan night there, which was awesome because it was a packed house, which I don't think they get very often. Almost everyone in the stands was essentially rooting for Miguel the whole time, not the Tigers or the Marlins. They're rooting for Miggy, and he had a nice series too, plenty to cheer for. It was just a fun time. So this whole experience is kind of the opposite of what I expect to see out of Miggy's last year. It's really cool. So just wanted to bring that up, and hopefully I get to bring it up a few more times before the season and his career ends.
All right.
Well, I think we should finally. Are you ready? Move over to your Chicago White Sox?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting times. We're rebuilding again, but we're going to compete next year. I don't know. I don't get it. It's kind of like it's a Chicago thing. It's kind of like what Jed Hoyer didn't call the rebuild, but maybe it wasn't really a rebuild because the Cubs are 4 games over 500 right now. So maybe the Sox can do the same thing. The only question is they may have gotten an A for all the assets they required and long-term health of the team. But if you still have the same front office in place, can we trust that it will be executed correctly and players will be developed properly? And I don't know that that's the case. That's where my reservations come in.
I think those are legit reservations,
because we also had an A plus rebuild. We had all the prospects who couldn't miss, and some of those prospects we're going to talk about in a little bit during Wrath of Hahn have been brought forward in the press as being bad influences on this team. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about the trade deadline. And right before we went on break, the Sox were the first to start moving pitchers, and they moved Giolito and Lopez together and acquired one of the top prospects from the Angels in Edgar Cuero, the catcher, and then left-handed pitcher Kai Bush. Then, to your point, they made a trade with the Dodgers where they sent slapdick motherfucker Lance Lynn and former Dodger Joe Kelly. It's kind of funny that those two went together too, because they're both interesting individuals on the mound.
They emotive, I would say.
Yes, they're very emotive. So like the fact that they went together is also kind of funny. The funniest part of this trade, the Sox got like a great top pitching prospect. This isn't the funny part of it. Nick Nastrini, and then another pitcher, Jordan Leisure, who's like in the teens, a rated prospect for the Dodgers. But they got Trace Thompson back, who they originally traded to the Dodgers like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that.
I think he was on the Tigers for a while too. So that guy's been all over the place.
Yeah, he's in his early 30s now. He's had ups and downs. He's not very consistent. He shows moments of what looks like he's gonna live up to his expectations by the Sox drafting him, while the Dodgers traded for him, and it never has transpired. He is getting a lot of playing time now though, with the White Sox in the outfield. So I think they may have just got him as, we need some players to help finish out this year. I think the most surprising trade that caught all of us off guard was the Sox traded Jake Berger, the number 2 offensive output player on their team, to the Marlins.
The most popular player on the field, I would say, of the White Sox.
To the Marlins for Jake Eder, who has a shit ton of tremendous upside, had just on July 31st had a 10 strikeout performance in Double-A, over 5 1/3 or 2/3 innings. He's probably slotted to be a number 2, even maybe a number 1 at some day, but it was just sort of shocking because he was under control. The Sox had spent they paid for 2 injuries, 2 ruptured Achilles rehabs for him. He was living up to what we had heard about his ability to hit. Yes, his batting average was only .215 or something, and he had
modern baseball though.
Yeah, he had a high strikeout rate, but his OPS was almost, was near 800, and he had a lot of he tended to get a lot of timely home runs. Like, I bet if you looked at how they measure clutch numbers, he's probably pretty high. I didn't look those up before coming on the air, but that was kind of like the trade that sort of like was like, oh shit, what else is going to happen after this trade? Because now at that point in my head, I'm like, well, shit, everybody's fair game.
I thought that trade made perfect sense on paper, because Eder is certainly a huge prospect to get back, and it might even work into your rotation next year.
Right.
I also like that it was Berger traded for Eder. So Berger, but it just makes no sense from a fan's perspective, and that's fine. I mean, that's not what Rick Hahn is doing.
I don't care about that.
Well, actually, it ended up not being Rick Hahn. It was revealed that it was Kenny Williams doing the negotiations for that.
That's something else I'm not even prepared to get into.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep.
I need to do some more digging around about that
Kim Ng,
whole
yeah. Well, Kim Ng from the Marlins general manager, who was a former part of the White Sox organization 10, 15 years ago. She just, I mean, she was being interviewed about it, but matter of factly said that she was negotiating with Kenny Williams, and that just kind of came to us as a surprise to many journalists, many bloggers out there, many Twitter people, that it was just a matter of fact that she was dealing with Kenny. Now, there's many explanations for that. First of all, is that she's with, you know, she's friends with Rick and Kenny. She's been in the organization, so
right.
maybe it just made sense to call Kenny, or I don't know. There's lots of speculation on what that possibly could mean. It could be very innocuous, that it doesn't mean a power divide or something, or mean anything larger than they're just good friends and they made the deal. Maybe Rick makes 90% of the other deals. It's just that happened to be that situation. But that was interesting, though, that came out.
Yeah. But they're not done yet. No. Then they trended Kendall Graveman for another catcher, Corey Lee, who I would say I'm questioning why he's not up right now. He's came back from an injury. He is hitting just fine in AAA right now. I mean, I don't know why maybe they're just going to wait and bring him up in September, but I would have brought him up before I brought Carlos Perez back up for Grandal being injured, or Zavala getting injured, but whatever. That looks like a solid addition for next year. We'll see him on the field. Maybe they're getting him acquainted with like the pitchers and things like that, so they didn't want to bring him up yet. Then they traded Kenyon Middleton, or is he really on the team? I don't know. Too many of the same players' numbers downloaded for the Yankees last night, and acquired right-handed pitcher Juan Corella from the Yankees. Then they didn't stop there. They stopped trading players, but they started to trade our favorite player, cash considerations. And there's a series of things they did. They got right-handed pitcher Mike Mayers from the Royals for cash considerations, right-handed pitcher Luis Patino from the Rays for cash considerations, another fucking catcher, Juan Gonzalez from the Braves for cash considerations. And then the last one was they got Keenan Wong, second baseman from the Mariners, for cash considerations. He's interesting because he was a top drafted prospect that just still hasn't panned out. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do anything with him. But they loaded up. They have, I don't know what their farm system is gonna be ranked when they redo the. Did you see something?
I heard something today. It went from in one. I forget who it was, if it was MLB or Pipeline or what it was. But the one stat I heard today is it went from 28 to 17, I think.
Yeah, so that's a pretty drastic increase.
Yeah, and it might even go further than that. I'm not sure, but yeah, it on paper, I mean, there is nothing to be upset about, but with the returns that Rick Hahn always gets from all of his trades and the fire sales. So the question you already brought up is, can they develop them? And we're not seeing that. So
yeah, I mean, let's talk. I mean, we just go to catcher development. I mean, Zach Collins turned out to be a bust. He's been a bust leaving the Sox. I did read an article like, oh, we got catchers, they never develop catchers, but that's really not true. I mean, someone said they haven't developed a catcher since Ron Karkovice, and Ron Karkovice was a good defensive catcher, but pretty mediocre hitting wise. But never mind. I'm going to stop talking because I can't remember the guy's name. It's Tyler. Right. Oh, Tyler Flowers.
Of course.
Flowers turned out to be a decent framer. He went on and had a pretty decent career with Atlanta too, after playing with the Sox for like 9 seasons or whatever. So they developed Tyler Flowers, and he succeeded in Major League Baseball. So, like, I mean, let's this is not a great organization right now, and we're going to get more into that in the next minute. But like, you know, let's not like, not everything is what Twitter or X or whatever the fuck it's called makes of it. And when Rick Hahn goes on and calls it a cesspool, I understand why he calls it a cesspool, because these people are insufferable. They are never fucking happy. Even when the White Sox won 93 games last year, they weren't fucking happy.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Why does Rick Hahn know anything about Twitter? Why would he even go on Twitter? Like, that seems like a horrible idea.
It is a horrible idea. I know. I think
but he needs to bring up Twitter all the time. So
all the time.
He's keenly aware. I've actually heard speculation. There is no, there's plenty of fake Rick Hahn.
Yeah, Rick Hahn burner account and all those.
Well, has he created his own burner? He must have. He must have some weird burner account where he's following all this shit because he knows about it.
I want to know why I don't have season tickets for the amount I've defended this motherfucker over the last 5 years.
He definitely knows who we are if he's on there. So
yeah, shit.
I'm wondering, like, we should figure out like what his burner account could be. Like, what we should maybe that's an asshole poll. Come up with some ideas for what it could be and put it out there. Like, let's sleuth out who the burner account is.
I think the question is, since we all know Rick Hahn is following Twitter based on his comments over and over again in the media, what do you think his account handle is? And then
you know how we could start? We'll look at the followers of Sox Type Thing, which you know what? I meant to bring this up, and this is the perfect time. You just passed the 300 followers.
Oh, I did. I made it past 300. I didn't.
Now we may have lost one or two since we were podcasting here, but I did see it was at 300 at one point. So
nice.
Maybe we go down that list and see if we can figure out which one of those would be Rick Hahn's burner account.
Yes. Maybe it is actually Rick Hahn's burner account.
that would be brilliant. He is a Michigan man. He is a smart man. So I think he might do something that obvious. That would be perfect.
I think since we're talking about Rick Hahn, we should segue into the wrath of Hahn and Kenyon Middleton and the news that broke about the White Sox this week and the culture within the organization that apparently started with Tony La Russa coming in there as manager and has not been fixed.
Maybe before that, but
yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, it was Robin Ventura before that, wasn't it?
And Renteria.
Renteria. Yeah, you're right. It was before that because there was someone alluded to that fact that players are not being held accountable.
You've heard the word accountability
a lot. Players, rookie relievers sleeping in the bullpen.
That was refuted by Rick Hahn himself. Yeah, it was a rookie position player sleeping in the clubhouse.
Yeah, so there you go. So at least we know that
he has severe narcolepsy. It was a situation that had to be dealt with.
Then just general, Middleton made general, that players weren't held accountable. Lance Lynn was interviewed on AJ's podcast, and his response was funny.
I saw that
when he said AJ flat out asked him, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what's not true," and then he just didn't say anything.
He just shut his mouth and smiled.
Yeah. I'll tell you what Key said that wasn't true.
It took me a second to understand what he was doing.
Yeah.
And they were like,
"Oh, yeah,
we get it.
We get it." So, now Lance Lynn does have a history of when he leaves organizations of kind of trashing them.
I can't imagine him doing that.
I know. He left the Cardinals and bad mouthing them. I don't know. Actually, I saw that. I don't know if he said anything bad about Texas, but about the Rangers. But anyway, so there's obviously, I believe there is truth in what was said. The thing that came out later, two things that came out later was, one, players were named by unnamed source that
You're talking about the Jesse Rogers report?
Yeah, the Jesse Rogers report. Thank you, Ryan. That Yasmani Grandal was
no
lazy.
friend. Was no friend to the pitchers.
Yeah.
That was a weird way to phrase that.
That him and Tim Anderson got in. Anderson, he slapped Anderson in the face because Grandal had said something about he wanted to leave, and Anderson said, "Fuck, fine, I'll fucking pay for your flight."
Yeah, it was the day before the All-Star break, and he wanted to get out of there, and so TA is like, "Yeah, I'll pay for your fucking flight." And Yasmani came over and gave 5 fingers to the face. Slap.
That was refuted by Grandal. I don't think Anderson was asked about it, or if he was, it wasn't.
Anderson hasn't spoken in
Well, he went crazy on Twitter, but that's a whole nother.
It was kind of scary, actually. I was worried about him.
That Yoan Moncada, which I'm not surprised by this one. This goes back to the idea that if you pay a player too early, maybe they get lazy and just sit back and take their paycheck, which you've talked about many a times. And he is just doesn't go through the routines, which would make sense why he's injured all the time if he's not going through the workouts properly and not keeping his body in the proper shape. That would be why he gets injured all the time. Then there was Eloy, and the Eloy comment I found was interesting because Eloy's comment wasn't necessarily that Eloy was lazy. It was just like Eloy was just fun and carefree.
But he doesn't really, he's not dedicated, I guess is the way I interpreted it. But he's not a bad guy, but
it was like it's like whoever made the comments was like, well, Eloy's just Eloy, was like basically what
not
the comment was.
But maybe he's just too childish or immature. Maybe was what they're getting at. I don't know.
Yeah. So that all came out. Hahn, of course.
Oh, he refutes everything.
He refuted that. And he had an interesting, I thought he had an interesting Kenyon Middleton story, which Kenyon did not deny when he just chose not to comment on it. So that Middleton he's like, I find it ironic because Middleton came to me to apologize for his behavior and went on and on. I'm not gonna bore everyone.
I do want to bring up, he did say ironic because I found it ironic that Rick Hahn was talking about the sanctity of the clubhouse and how things shouldn't be talked about outside the clubhouse. Yet he was ready, willing, and able to throw Kenyon Middleton under the bus in the next breath. So that I found a bit ironic.
Well, maybe because Middleton was no longer in that clubhouse.
Oh yeah,
the rules.
Bus backing up. Beep beep beep.
So it was just another embarrassing moment that has started since La Russa walked in the door. Like that. To your point, as you said in the opening, the Sox continue to get national media coverage, but for the wrong things.
I would argue, does this start? I mean, this is our blog and everything else, but does this start back in the Drake LaRoche shit? Is this?
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Does this come back to the Chris Sale craziness? I mean,
you're right. There's a long list and a long list of crazy.
There's a through line with all of this. I mean, at times, I think when the Sox were rebuilding, the spotlight was taken off because they weren't supposed to be winning by design. So I wonder, as soon as the spotlight came back on, that same through line emerged again.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I can't argue either way on that, but I would say there is a history of national media coverage for negative things occurring in the White Sox organization.
You don't hear about anywhere else.
It goes all the way back to the Black Sox, really, Ryan. It goes all the way back to that.
This is what I've been trying to tell you since the day we started this blog in 2010 or 2011, whenever it was.
Whatever.
The White Sox will be endlessly entertaining for the rest of time.
That's why they got their own handle. Speaking of endlessly entertaining, the news doesn't stop there, and I know you have I can't wait to hear this.
Wow.
Smitty has put together, for those of you who may have missed this, but I don't think anyone has missed this.
No.
put
The
up your
biggest
Dukes.
headline. We have buried the lead in this
We
whole
buried the lead in this whole thing is TA goes down, and he goes down in a put up your Dukes fight that he had with José Ramírez.
Yeah, I call this, you could either call this the TA KO'd or the punchline, or I don't know, Sox punchline here. But yes, of course, the fight between José Ramírez and Tim Anderson it was definitely the talk of baseball. It has that fight had so many moments that just made me laugh my ass off. And I'm not making fun of Tim getting knocked out or knocked down, which is actually a discussion we can have. But that part I didn't find funny at all. I'd see a guy get concussed potentially. But there are so many moments around that the whole situation is just fucking hilarious. And I actually broke it down. I actually wrote notes. I printed out my notes for this.
Oh, wow.
Because right now I have 12 bullet points.
Okay.
Of funny moments throughout this fight.
Let's let them rip.
Yeah. So I think you're going to add to this list as well. But
yeah,
of course, the beginning of it, where José Ramírez seemed to get really upset over nothing.
Exactly. I watched that part like numerous times to see if I missed something. Right.
I'm a neutral party to this. I hate the White Sox and the Guardians. So
I understand.
I saw the play, and it was kind of strange. The only thing I could think would be minorly offensive is that José Ramírez slides in the base, starts to get up, and he's still staring at TA's nutsack because he's still straddling the bag. But that's just how the play worked. They just didn't collide. He just let him slide between his legs, I guess. But that I didn't find any ill will, or there was not a hard tag in that play. I didn't see it, at least.
Yeah.
And that is something that's come out later that José Ramírez was complaining about, is Tim Anderson's proclivity to place hard tags on runners. But that may or may not be true.
That is something taught in baseball.
Well, I didn't see it in that case. And so
I did not either, but
there is a larger context to this. And it's what José Ramírez was referring to, is that
the night before, but
in general, that TA does this to guys, or recently has been doing this to guys, tagging them hard, which José Ramírez is like, we're doing this game to provide for our families. And if you're doing things like this to injure us, you're hurting that ability. It's like, how is a hard tag, even if TA was applying a hard tag, who's being injured by this, or could potentially threaten their career? So I guess I'd have to see more specific examples of what Ramírez is talking about, but I thought that was ridiculous. The night before is the proper context to bring into this, because TA made a shrewd, I call it gamesmanship, where he puts the tag on and tries to push the guy's hand off the bag. And we've seen that before. We've actually seen that happen to TA before.
Yeah.
We actually made Josh Donaldson asshole of the week for essentially kneeing TA in the head to push him off the bag.
That's aggressive to me.
That was violent.
That was violent.
That looked violent to me and dangerous, because it involves the head and a knee, where this is TA using his glove to push an arm off the bag. I think it's annoying. I think it's smart by any fielder to do that, but I hate when even replay or an umpire or a replay falls for that shit, because I think that's stupid if you just push their arm off the bag. That's not the idea. But if you can get away with it, then you got away with it. But I think that's what this whole fight started about, is that him pushing the. I didn't even see who he pushed off the bag the night before. I don't think it was Ramírez, but
no, it wasn't Ramírez. It was like Jimenez or something. I can't
There's obviously more context to this that Ramírez alluded to that we're not fully aware of, because whatever that play at that moment was not enough to start a fight. But whatever. So that brings me to my second point, because somehow it incensed Ramírez to the point where he got up, started pointing at Tim, said some kind of magic word, because it made TA drop his gloves like he was in a fucking hockey fight.
I know, that was the best part of it.
He threw his glove down, like he almost I almost think he threw both arms down, throwing, obviously only has one glove, but it looked like a hockey player dropping the gloves, just like you've seen a million times if you watch the NHL. That just cracked me up immediately when I saw that.
I mean, it was nice to not have a tickle fight for once.
Well, That's the thing about this. Like we make fun of tickle fights all the time, and I'm going to get to that in a second. With everybody come out and being all macho. This is not a tickle fight. This is pure violence, which is, I guess, a little more respectable in a weird way than the way we make fun of tickle fights. But there is definitely a tickle fight aspect to this that I'll get to. But before we get to that, I have to point out how I think it was both guys. I think you already said it. Put up their dukes. They put up their fists like the Notre Dame mascot, or like a 1800s boxing champion, like the classic old stance where they put their fists in front of their face. It just looks so weird. Like they wanted to look tough and they just did not look tough at all, which just made me laugh. I think my favorite part, I have so many favorite parts, but this is one of my favorite parts, is the replay where you see the second base umpire is right in the middle of it as it starts and could have broken it up.
He's like,
that dude got the fuck out of there as fast as he possibly could. He was backpedaling. He was 30 feet away from it within 2 seconds, just straight back. He was in it, and then he was out.
The minute they put up their dukes.
I saw the dukes.
Jack freaking Dempsey over there, like 1950s boxing.
I don't know that it's an umpire's responsibility in baseball to get in the middle of a fight, and maybe they're taught to just get the fuck out, but that is exactly what he did, and it just looked so funny because I don't know, it just the authority figure in the room just did
have at it, boys.
He absolved himself of all authority at that moment. It was just too great. The next is the right hook, not a left hook, as a reporter later got it wrong that Terry Francona corrected him on, which is hilarious. The right hook, not the effect of it, but just José Ramírez throwing of the right hook was so random and not technical at all. He was literally, it was a closed fist slap is what it was. He just happened to have his fist closed up. He was not throwing a hook. He just swung his arm and it happened to connect with TA's jaw, which that's another thing about the pugilist aspect of this, how they put up their dukes. I heard, I don't know anything about boxing. Maybe you know more than I do, but apparently people are saying that TA set up as a southpaw when he put his dukes up. And he would have been much better served if he had set up as a right-hander, as he is. Somehow, even if his form was backwards on that, that is actually what led to his jaw being wide open to be hit by a flailing right hand. So, but I make more fun of José Ramírez's technique on that because it was not even a hook. He actually just swung his arm and it happened to connect. So the idea that was a right hook just sort of made me laugh. Of course, the phrase that will live in infamy is "Down goes Anderson." Down goes Anderson. Tom Hamilton, the Cleveland, I believe he's the radio announcer.
Yeah, he's a jackass.
But his play-by-play could not have been more perfect for this.
No, moment. It was good.
I gotta tip my cap to Tom Hamilton because down goes Anderson. It's going to be one of the greatest baseball calls of all time. We were going to hear this for decades to come. It's unfortunate that comes to at the detriment of Tim Anderson.
Yeah.
Who at the end of this, I don't think TA is a bad guy. And it's kind of sad that this is all coming to, sounds like we're making him the butt of the joke, but I'm trying to spread the hilarity throughout this thing and not just on TA, but down goes Anderson. I mean, we'll see you tomorrow night. You know, the greatest calls of all time. Down goes Anderson's going to live in that realm. Beyond that, the next thing, and I'm sure you're watching the White Sox feed. That's mainly what I've seen on Twitter is the White Sox feed. Somehow, as this is escalating, of course, the bullpens have to come out. And this is the part that you and I make fun of all the time, the tickle fight, because literally in this case, these guys, the two bullpens have to come out of the same tunnel.
Yeah.
They're going down the same set of stairs. There's a stairway that they have to go down to, which I'm going to get to in a second, but it's just funny. They're friends, or at least getting along well enough as they are right next to each other in the bullpen, but they have to get all hard as they run side by side into through the outfield to get to where the fight is, that eventually take sides and whatever. It's just the absurdity of the whole idea of it. There was a brilliant cinematic moment, which I'm not sure everyone caught. I'm wondering if you caught it. somehow the White Sox had a camera at the kind of the back of the bullpen tunnel down the stairs. And they cut to that as the melee is breaking out, and you can see the backs, like the shadows.
Yes, I saw that
of different players going down the stairs, and immediately I thought of the famous Steadicam scene from Goodfellas, where Henry and Karen are being whisked into the bowels of the restaurant.
Right.
The back door where he gets, he's tipping all the guys. It's just one of the most brilliant cinematic scenes in film history. And I thought that's what the White Sox were going for at that moment, as you see the bullpen's empty in the shadows going down the same steps, and it was a perfect baseball cinematic moment. It makes me laugh every time I see it. Completely unintentional, but I think of how beautiful that moment was. And it makes me laugh every time. The next thing, I love it when coaches and managers act tough during these fights. Of course, Pedro he went nuts. He was going after a bunch of different Cleveland coaches, or maybe it was Cleveland coaches going after him. But as the old guys going after each other, that always makes me laugh. What they were so upset about. Obviously, there's a larger context to all this. We're never going to know. There's definitely acrimony with the Guardians and the White Sox that I'm sure you're going to get to, that you're more informed about. But that's just sort of the nature of division battles. There's bad blood that builds up over time. So a lot of this stuff is happening in a deeper context. But this ended up it looked scary and sad at the time. It ended up being hilarious. But of course, Eloy emerged from the pileup limping terribly. So, and if anything could go wrong, it would go wrong for Eloy. Somehow, I thought his season was over because of this melee. Ended up, I think he played the next night. He was fine.
He got a single later that game.
Oh, later the game. Okay. Yeah, even better. Yeah. So, but the idea, the drama of him being injured once again to fulfill that.
He started hopping around. He was like hopping around like he couldn't put pressure on his right ankle.
Yeah, and he was very emotional. He was almost in tears, like he thought his season was over, the way he was reacting. Yeah. But
that goes back to us saying from day one that this guy doesn't know how to deal with pain and just cannot deal. He just doesn't know how to manage it.
But there's so many Twitter meme or Twitter comments like, oh, of course Eloy gets hurt, but fortunately he was not. So the next one, of course, is I didn't realize how big Andrew Vaughn actually was until he picked up TA to keep him from entering the fight for like a third time.
He carried him down into the tunnel.
Yeah, he just kept going. That was the other part that was hilarious. He just took him completely, not just off the field, down the tunnel, but he just picked him up off his feet. Vaughn looked 3 times TA's size at that moment. I couldn't believe either how small TA actually is or how big Vaughn is. It just never registered for me. Maybe everyone's noticed it, but he just picked him up like a child, essentially.
Yeah, it's like he's like he had a baby Bjorn on and was taking him for a ball.
That's it. Of course, Terry Francona, post game, he was actually referring to Tom Hamilton's call. He's not talking about the whole fight idea or TA getting knocked down or knocked out. But he kept having to stop from laughing. He's like, "It's not funny. It's not funny. I'll just say boys will be boys." And I think the question was if he had heard Tom Hamilton's Down Goes Anderson.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But he couldn't say it. So the last thing I have on my list, and I don't know where this ranks, but Michael Kopech's comments afterwards.
Oh, about the sub 500? Yeah.
We won't be bullied by a team below 500. Like, well, you are 20 games or so below 500. So I like it. He would make the distinction that he would be bullied by a team over 500.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess that's where he draws the line.
I don't think that was his intent, but the idea that he's trying to disrespect the Guardians for their record is laughable considering the White Sox records. Just more tough guys acting tough, machismo. Yeah. That was just too funny. But I mean, I think you might have more to add to the list. But
well, I mean, I'll say what I said earlier before we were on the air is that this is so AL Central, right?
That's a great call. Yeah,
2 underperforming teams.
Getting all hard.
This happens, but for me, this runs way deeper, and this goes back to last year, where at U.S. Cellular Field, or what the hell is it called now? The Guaranteed Rate Field.
Great.
When the Guardians won the division there, they were heard chanting "fuck the White Sox," not only from their bench, but long partying after they had clinched.
Doesn't this go back to the year previous when the White Sox won the division, or am I confusing? I'm just thinking this might go back years and years. Just I'm not sure it's directly to only last year. I think
well, I mean, yeah, a lot of these guys have been playing against. This is definitely like
that's the thing.
You remember like when there was like the Barrett and Przinsky thing with the Cubs. There was those whenever teams, when you got the same players who play against each other for a long time.
They used to play 19 times a year.
Yeah,
they've alleviated that, but
yeah, I don't know if it dates all the way back to that.
When and where was Tim Anderson flipping off the crowd? Was that in Cleveland?
Yeah,
last
that was
year or
in
2
Cleveland.
years ago?
I think that may have been last year.
Okay, but there's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of history there between these players. It's not like, oh, there's been bad blood since 1970 or something. This is like this core group and the Guardians core group. They have been playing against each other and battling for this division, and it's just not good. It's just not good.
It's good for entertainment. But
I think it just came to a head there, and I'm actually kind of surprised. I was relieved, but I'm also surprised that there weren't more acts of punching from other Guardians and White Sox players. Maybe everyone was just so surprised at what had gone down that they just wanted to get both of those guys safely off the field and move on. But
yeah, it was scary for a moment when TA got knocked out. I think he was briefly knocked out. He got right back up, but you could see him while they were trying to help him off the field at one point, and he was pretty wobbly for a while.
Yeah,
he passed the concussion protocols.
No,
I believe the next day. So I can't believe they would fudge that. So
I mean, Rizzo passed the concussion protocols, and now he's on the IL with concussion post concussion.
Yeah, that might be more an idea about how little we know about concussions or how to
exactly
or whatever.
So, but yeah,
there was some kind of hard ass discussions about was he knocked out or knocked down. Doesn't matter. I mean that was not the funny part of it about any of this. I don't want to see anybody have a fucking brain injury.
No, not at all. It was just like the beginning of it looked so funny, like you said, the old fighting style, and like not even TA's punches. We didn't talk about this, but like you could tell they had no idea how to fight because he they were so wide that like it's amazing no one got out of the way from any of the punches.
Yeah, I think TA actually connected with his gut the moment with Ramirez's gut the moment he was getting hit in the jaw. Like there's one still photo where you can see him getting into his gut, but I don't know if that did much damage or would have.
Yeah. So yeah, that was some White Sox fun. I did want to there was also some more not so good news, but I guess it doesn't really matter this year. But Liam Hendriks' season is over. He had to have Tommy John surgery. I actually thought
just more and more bad news on top of bad news. Just
the funny angle to this is he would probably be coming back to the White Sox right around the trade deadline, which was so White Sox that they'll be like, well, we're getting Liam Hendriks back. It's like making a trade.
Yeah. I mean, Tommy John.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably
12 to 14 to 18 months.
I mean,
the question is he done as a White Sox? I mean, is this the last? Have we seen the last of him? His deal is done at the end of next year.
Next year, yeah. I don't know, but
he might not even be recovered by then.
Yeah, I was thinking about if he did make it in within a year, that
it
would be the typical White Sox. Well, we're getting healthy at the trade deadline, so that's like making moves.
That's just sad. It's just such a bummer. That dude, I mean, has been through more than anybody. Is the coolest guy, and then just to have to deal with this. again, the White Sox downplayed this injury originally. He was going to be out for a couple weeks.
Well, he thought the
I
same
thought I heard it.
thing as the way it was diagnosed, but I was worried from the beginning because it said they had the forearm. It was a forearm.
And he says he's had this issue his whole career. He's just been dealing with it, and suddenly it's Tommy John. It's like it was always on the edge there, but
yeah. So finally, he's going to do it. He might be doing it on the Sox dime to get out of there, and be healthy somewhere else. Who knows? Yeah. But I have two more things I just want to touch on.
Sure.
One is, and this kind of came to light on the White Sox broadcast the other night, so I dug in deeper. Aaron Bummer he's always gotten like a really bad rap. And a lot of it is because he lets up a lot of hits that are like very weak contact, and the ball doesn't go very far.
You brought that up, and I thought you were being an apologist, but now I've heard many people bring that up, and I've actually seen exactly what you're talking about now.
So let me.
I apologize. Let me apologize directly to you for poo-pooing that idea that he was just unlucky, but it's documented now.
I am gonna
many sources
call him this year the unluckiest pitcher in baseball, and here's why. His ERA currently right now is 6.37. Do you have any idea what his expected ERA is?
Half that?
More than half.
Oh no.
2.94. So yeah, I guess about half actually. 2.94 is his expected ERA. You know how many barrels he's allowed this year, Ryan?
17.
1.
Wow.
He's allowed 1 barrel. You know what his average exit launch angle is on his pitches?
Yes, but I'm not going to tell you.
It's negative 3.1.
Wow. Ground ball guy.
This guy has the worst luck of any pitcher I can remember in White Sox history, and maybe in Major League Baseball. I mean, it's like they should literally, when he's on the mound, bring the corners in, even though there's no bunt on, because soft contact is going to occur. Yes. And I've seen him let up runs with the bases loaded because soft contact occurred. The infield was drawn in, but it got hit up in the air and landed between the drawn in infield and the outfield.
And we've seen TA botch those plays.
Right. He's botched 2 for him this year. Yeah.
Was it on Bummer? Wow.
Yeah, a couple for Bummer this year. But like he's a good pitcher. I wish he had better luck. He's got good stuff. It's obvious in the numbers. And when you look at the, numbers that have some measured meaning versus just your atypical stats that people throw out there. So I just thought it was worth talking about because it's crazy. It's really crazy to me. And one last thing I want to touch on, and it's no surprise, but the numbers that Luis Robert has put up this season and continues to put up. I always make a joke about this when we talk about plateaus for Chicago teams, because it maybe doesn't mean as much because we don't have a storied baseball history. Like if a Yankee player hits some sort of historic mark within their organization,
the world comes to his feet.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that is a bigger deal because they've won so many championships and have so many great teams. But it's some interesting numbers for Robert. He's the first White Sox center fielder with a 30 home run season, which is fucking comical.
Ever. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's the first outfielder since JD in 2008 with 30 home runs. Hit 30 home runs and 30 doubles, or at least 30 plus. I mean, he's over 30 in both.
Sure. And then he's going way over.
And then now he's the 10th season in White Sox history, easy for me to say, with 30 plus homers and 10 plus stolen bases. So he's the
MVP, AL MVP in any other season.
Yeah, if Ohtani had gotten traded, what would have happened to the NL?
That was his last hope. Yeah.
But it's crazy. It's great to see. It's great to see that he is also one of the guys they locked up until basically 2030. So
least
I
he's
was looking that
performing.
up the other day, so that one paid off.
Yeah.
That one paid off. So
I got one.
yeah, well, hey, come on, that $24 million on Moncada next year. What a deal. What a deal.
You said, we were talking before the show, like I saw that Luis has a sprained finger or something.
Yeah, they said
he
it
get
was
hit by a pitch or no, he's sliding into a base.
Yeah, the x-rays were negative. So
X-ray
we'll
would
see.
be for a fracture. So I mean, this
Yeah.
sounds like ligament issues, but
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. I mean, they were
Okay.
off today, so we'll see what comes out
oh,
tomorrow.
I didn't know when it happened. I just saw that it was a potential issue.
Yeah. So, but I think that's enough. More than enough.
Yeah, we might end up splitting off the whole Sox
You might,
section into its own Sox type thing again for the first time in quite a while. So that was a lot. That was a lot to deal with. I hope that makes you feel a little better going through all of it, talking it out. I had fun with it, at least. I'm sure it wasn't all fun for you, but
yeah, no, not all of it, but
No.
some of it was just par for the course. I'm kind of over a lot of it at this point. Like, like the staining of the culture and the organization. I'm like, well, you knew something was going on, right? So it's like for it to, but now that it's officially out, like getting an idea, but there was a little alluded. Remember, it was alluded to when La Russa left last year that the players are finally getting like instruction under Miguel Cairo and being talked to.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember like those little.
That was the best 2 weeks in the last 2 years. So.
Yeah, right. Those little things. Well, hey, since we got rid of all that dead weight that I just went off over the trade, the Sox are above 500.
Right.
Since getting rid of all those shitty players.
We're gonna have to keep track of that.
Wanted.
Put it in the stat muse. Sox record since they got rid of all those shitty players.
Yeah, that just like that, and they'll be like, well, wait, who?
No, they would know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Artificial intelligence is fucking smart.
But I think that leads us to one of our signature segments.
Well, yeah, I think you noticed or didn't notice. I got the camera angle a little bit wrong, but I'm wearing my Vans t-shirt.
Oh, I did not notice.
That is in honor of one Michael Lorenzen, former Tiger who was traded at the deadline. Throwing the first of our segment, no-no of the week. In fact, it is no-nos of the week. We've been gone for 2 weeks, so of course there were 2 no-nos.
No-nos of the 2 weeks.
Yeah, no-no of the 2 weeks. There you go. The most recent one, of course, is Michael Lorenzen, who threw a no-hitter for the Philadelphia Phillies in his second Phillies start and the first in Philadelphia, which makes him
crazy.
The most instant legend in Philly history. They might have a statue of him next to Rocky already.
I think the Rocky statue is down.
Is it?
And replaced with Lorenzo.
Yeah, I think it should. That statue will have Vans cleats, of course, because he is famous for actually having, I don't know if he has a deal with Vans or how they work it out, but he has always worn Vans on the mound. They developed a Vans cleat for him to use, which me being a skateboarder at heart, I've always worn Vans. I always thought that was cool. He is a skater, is why he a former skater, I guess. That's why he's always wearing Vans. Thought that was cool. He had, I just can't imagine making a better impression on your new fan base. The first time you're in front of them, you throw a fucking no-hitter. I'm really happy for him. It sucks that this is not happening in a Tigers uniform, but he's a good guy. He's been a journeyman, and we've talked about it all year. He's not been a great pitcher, but he just seems like a good guy. And the coolest thing he said, which really made an impression on me, and I brought it up before, is before the season started, he said he decided to come to the Tigers because he knew they would make him better. And that is proved so true. And he's even backed that up after he was traded. He said the same thing. He's like, I came here, I knew they'd help me in my career, and they did. And I'll appreciate that forever. So I think there's a potential he might come back, although now he is the favorite son of Philadelphia. So he might be set up in a much better situation. But
he might.
For that guy to have the year of his life, and a lot of that was because of Detroit and in Detroit, to see that continue, I'm happy for him. It would have been better if it happened with the Tigers. It would have been better if I hadn't dropped him for my fantasy team a couple weeks ago. Could have used that no-hitter. Just super cool. I appreciate it. I think you saw that and I tried to look this up. Was it 124 pitches?
Or 26 or 9,
Something. It
120.
was a
It's
lot.
it was a lot of pitches. It's something you don't see a lot. Like
I'm a little worried about that. You don't see that a lot because it tends to lead to issues going forward. I mean, the most famous, of course, is oh my God, Johan Santana. No, is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, Johan Santana. Yeah.
Yeah. From the Mets, he ended up throwing like 130 something pitches to get the first no hitter in Mets history, and his career is essentially over after that game. But he got his no hitter, and the Mets got theirs. But so you kind of worry about somebody going that deep because you just never see it anymore. And whether the data says that always always injuries happen after so many pitches, especially when their teams have avoided that for so long, where no one gets even close to that, to all of a sudden get to that number of pitches. It kind of makes you nervous that he could have some issues going forward, but hopefully not. Regardless, he's had the year of his life. He is a legend in Detroit. He is a bigger legend already in Philadelphia. It might be too big of expectations. He can only go down from here. Like, where does he go?
Until he pitches another no-hitter in a few days.
Maybe that is his destiny. We'll see. So, congratulations, Michael Lorenzen. But of course, that is not the only no-no that we have to speak of. We have a Maddox no-no to speak of with Framber Valdez.
Under a hundo pitchos.
He got his no-hitter with 93 pitches against the Cleveland Guardians.
That's, again, an indictment of the AL Central right there.
That is so AL Central. Yeah. Framber Valdez just completely dominated the Guardians. He actually faced the minimum. He allowed one walk, but I guess they got a double play when the one base runner got on. So he faced the minimum 27 batters. So
yeah,
to get a no-hitter, to face the minimum, and to have it under 100 pitches,
it's incredible. It's incredible, man.
That's as cool as it gets. I kind of don't have vitriol anymore for the Astros.
I've kind of lost it too. Like,
time has passed. I feel like they've put up with a lot of shit over time. They've also proven they are a great organization, whether they're cheating or not. Maybe they still are, but I think that kind of vitriol has died down. So I think maybe my attitude hinges on Justin Verlander now that he's back with the Astros. So I'll be rooting for him at least going forward in these playoffs. Especially since my Tigers won't be involved in the playoffs. We'll see if the Cubs are, but I think that's a rooting interest at least. But yeah, I mean, we made the joke the last couple of years we have the no-no of the week because it was happening every single fucking week.
Yeah.
We had a dry spell for quite some time this season. Now it's happening every single week again. I think we've had I think we had one in the last episode 2 weeks ago. Now we've got two this week. So our no of the week is coming to fruition once again.
No.
Well, I think that leads to a segment we've neglected for the last few weeks. Our shit we couldn't make up.
Yeah. I'll go, you go, and then I'll go.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this. Why don't you do yours? I've got one, and then you can finish up with your second one.
Yeah. This one I've showed up in my Twitter feed. Apparently, disgruntled Yankees fan posted the Yankees left fielder position as a job on Indeed for only $15 an hour. So I guess that it's come to that the Yankees fans are now going to job boards to post position jobs for the Yankees to try to help them out. So
I love fan angst, but creative fan angst is
the best.
Is great. Yeah. I mean, get throw a bunch of swear words and disparaging remarks against the players you hate on your own team on Twitter. Big deal. Anybody can do that, but take it to the next level. Create a job opportunity on Indeed. That's brilliant.
Did you want to go with yours?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. With mine, of course, it always comes back to the Angels, it seems, as they took away our fun at the trade deadline, pulling Shohei Ohtani off the trade market a week before the deadline itself. And then went for it by trading for Lucas Giolito, being buyers of the deadline instead of sellers, of course. And in that time, they have gone. Well, now they are 4-9. They were 2-9 from that moment of going for it. But then they beat your Giants the last 2 nights. So your Giants are kind of ruining my narrative there. But
yeah,
the idea that the Angels would go for it seemed perplexing and disappointing, just because everyone is ready to jump in on the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes before it officially happens next year. Just imagining the trade opportunities the Angels could have had, what kind of riches they would have brought back and prospects. But to get have the unicorn that is Shohei Ohtani on your team for 2 months to make a playoff run,
and you're not going to.
Yeah, they took that away, and now they took it away from everyone, even from themselves, by going on this slide. They are now 10.5 games out of the division, so that's
unbelievable.
They are 7 games out of the wild card. So they basically went for it and lost it within a week. And again, it just brings up what a baseball tragedy the Angels are by taking Mike Trout, number one, and then now Shohei Ohtani from the world of baseball, essentially. They will not be participating in the playoffs once again, just because the Angels are a completely inept organization. For whatever reason, they have the 2 of the greatest players of our generation, maybe of any generation.
Yeah.
They can't get to the fucking playoffs.
Unbelievable. Speaking of not getting to the playoffs, it's kind of fitting we've got 2 New York teams because we were both, Chicago was playing New York at the same time. Sox here and the Cubs are visiting the Mets, and the Mets as they dumped players and made trades, and not
After
only
spending $368 million in their payroll this year.
Well, not only did they get, players in return, they also ended up shelling out a lot of money to these other teams to take their players because of the high contracts. And the funny part about this is the current Mets payroll is they really gouged it, is 153.2.
Oh, after they've traded away Verlander and Scherzer?
Yeah, they are paying. I think they traded. I think there's a couple other guys that traded.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They are paying their players to play elsewhere $137.5 million, almost the same amount of their current payroll. I mean, if you want to talk, this is Washington Nationals territory right here. Because now Scherzer is getting 3 checks. He will be getting a check from the Rangers for whatever the Mets didn't pick up. He'll be getting a check from the Mets, and he'll be continuing to get checks from the Nationals.
Well,
that dude's laughing. That dude is he's laughing all the way to the fucking bank. I mean,
he's a world champion, so
he's gotten what he's deserved.
He wins.
I'm not saying
he wins on every level,
but that's some shit you just couldn't make up, man.
I agree. I have heard you said they're paying for their players not to play for them, but I've heard other people phrase it as they are basically buying a farm system. They are eating those contracts in order to negotiate getting better prospects.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true. Yeah,
it is. But it's kind of gross. I mean, it's really gross, and it's kind of something to think about going forward, as Stephen Cohen is operating in a different stratosphere money wise than anyone else is, potentially, or at least he's willing to. That's something I want to keep tabs on. It seems to be a kind of a new thing in that they got great prospects for 40-plus-year-old Scherzer and 40-plus-year-old Verlander, simply because they ate so much money on their deals. So it was palatable to the trading teams. But that was only to get better prospects, and they got great prospects back. So that might be, we might even see this in the next collective bargaining agreement to see how that side of things works. But that could lead to a huge competitive advantage or disadvantage to other teams. If that is a new paradigm where you can simply buy a fucking farm system by, investing, paying top players way too much money as the Mets just did, but not really mattering just because he's a 16. Cohen's worth like what, $16 billion. So who cares if he's eating $35 million, 70 million, 130. What'd you say the number was total?
137.5.
Is it worth that to buy the best farm system and then maybe use those assets for whatever you want, whether it helps the club on the field or if those are trade assets at some point for other things, which I think is his big picture game, just to build up the farm system to trade those prospects away to get more proven players. So that's a larger conversation I just brought up, but I guess it's just interesting. It's something I'm wary of and something to keep an eye on, especially with the Mets and their nefarious ways.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if nefarious ways is a segue, but we might as well move over to our asshole of the week.
Yes.
I think this is a pretty obvious one. I've seen like non-sports entities reporting about this, including CNN and everywhere else, about the Baltimore Orioles, who are having, the most remarkable season they've had in the last 10 years at least. I think they have the second best record in baseball or the American League. It's something like that. They're doing it the right way. They're building through their system. They have called up all sorts of prospects through, and they're all coming together to form a really formidable team. Unfortunately, they somehow want to shoot themselves in their own foot and ruin this great feeling by mysteriously suspending their pretty well-known and beloved broadcaster, Kevin Brown, for not being positive enough, I guess is how you'd phrase it. They thought he was being negative when he brought up on a pregame show in Tampa Bay that the Orioles had won more games in Tropicana Field this year than they had in the previous 3 years combined.
Yeah, I don't know why stating facts is such a bad thing.
Number one, that's a fact. Number two, that sounds really positive to me. They've turned things around as this positive vibe is permeating throughout Baltimore, but somehow John Angelos, owner of the Angels or of the Orioles, says, I guess that's not good enough. You need to be even more positive. Don't bring up anything from the past. Only positivity. That's all we want out of our announcers. And he was mysteriously suspended. It wasn't even really announced. People just sort of figured it out that he was gone. He actually was removed from the TV broadcast and was on a radio call, I think, the next day. And then he was gone from all of those for the better part of a week before I believe it was a Reddit feed or whatever you call it, that started to bring it up, and they all realized, I think this guy's been suspended. And it ended up being true that he was suspended for not being positive enough, I guess, for Angelos's liking.
What puzzles me about this is I watched it, and I don't think anyone thought he said anything wrong, but there's a whole team of producers, right?
Yeah.
And they must have put together, it wasn't like he came in and said, hey, let's talk about how things have been bad here at Tropicana Field.
He did not go rogue, to your point. Yeah.
And he's the one
that takes the brunt.
There
was a graphic made that he was reading over. It was in the pregame game notes produced by the Orioles. It's just it's a fact also, and it's a positive fact. So it is bizarre. It is small-minded. It is just small of John Angelos to do this.
I don't even know. I don't understand it. And Benetti is friends with them, and so this is really funny. Here's the quote. Top of the second inning the other night against the Yankees, he goes, it's pointed out that New York has beaten first place Baltimore 6 times this season, and then added, I hope I don't get suspended by the Orioles for saying that.
That's the best thing. Like all these broadcasters, they probably almost all of them went to school together. Everybody goes to Syracuse essentially. So they all know each other. And that's the best part of this is they can kind of come to each other's aid because the same night that Benetti was making jokes about that, there were like 10 different broadcasters that were either like directly commenting about it or joking about it, like bringing light to what a ridiculous situation this is. So it's kind of cool to see the brotherhood get together and say, this is outrageous what's happening here. Probably for fear that it could happen to them as well. If this current climate continues where just stating facts is an issue with ownership for whatever reason.
I remember the Tribune Company with Stone.
Well, we've got that to talk about for sure. That's a little bit different.
That's a little different because there was negative opinions expressed, but there were also things he was statistically stating as fact.
Yeah. That was the biggest difference is it wasn't the Tribune. It was Ken Merker that was having an issue with it. He actually went up to the booth and confronted Steve Stone about it. So it was the childish 2004 Chicago Cubs that had the problem with it. That team is such a disaster in so many ways, so disappointing in so many ways. But that being the most embarrassing aspect of it, Stone wasn't actually fired. He quit because the atmosphere was so ridiculous in his mind. And I don't blame him.
For some reason, I always read it as
that's what I thought. I had to look it up. Yeah,
interesting.
No, he was not, but that was a similar ridiculous situation. That didn't involve ownership, at least, but the idea that it could be led by a player is even more thin-skinned and ridiculous. But I had one more point. Oh, I know. This is not unheard of within the history of the Baltimore Orioles.
Interesting.
In fact, a very similar situation played out in the late 90s with John Miller, who you are intimately familiar with.
I love John Miller.
Being the Giants. He's a radio announcer with the Giants, isn't he?
He does NBC too, when they're on NBC.
Okay. Well, and of course, he was famous nationally as doing ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, unfortunately with Joe Morgan, who was annoying as fuck. But John Miller was always, I thought he was like the voice of God, the voice of baseball.
No, it was good. It was good back then.
No, but actually John Angelos' father, Peter Angelos, the original owner or the previous owner of the Orioles, actually did a similar thing when apparently John Miller wasn't being positive enough and actually fired him. And it was a gift from heaven for the Giants fans that he moved over there and has been their announcer for, I think it's 27 years now that he's been their broadcaster. So it's just sad that the Orioles are finally being, they have a great team for the first time in for fucking ever. And they've immediately turned that to shit in the public opinion for such a ridiculously small-minded action like this, and just universally unpopular. I heard someone else bring up on I think it was Danny Parkins on Parkins and Spiegel. He brought up like how in sports, politics, anything these days, there's no universal opinion. People will argue about everything, one way or the other, about anything. But this particular issue, there's no one that is on the Orioles side of this.
Right. No,
Kevin Brown's side. So this is just universally panned by the world. So wow, John Angelos and the Baltimore Orioles, you are our assholes of the week.
Ba-boom. I think that's it.
Well, I do have one final thing I wanted to bring up.
Oh God.
And I'm going to call this a fantasy minute. Maybe this is a new segment we start doing.
We're good.
Well, I wanted to, as an asshole, as this is clearly an asshole statement, we are Major League A-holes on this podcast. Our fantasy league is it's an AL only, actually, because we only have 6 guys playing this year. So dropped down to just AL only. So we were the American League assholes. I wanted to point out that as of prior to this recording, I am at 52.5 points in our league, and a possible 60, which we are a 5x5 league. We have 6 players. So if you get the maximum amount of points, it would be 60. And I'm starting to approach that. I'm in the lead in 5 categories out of 10. I'm in second place in 3 more. I'm in third place in the other 2. And I'm not going to ask you if you think I can get all 10 categories by the end of the season. I'm going to ask you, if I do somehow do that, should I quit fantasy baseball? Because I could never have a better season than winning all 10 categories in our league.
You should.
Should I
quit?
Should I just quit? I'm the commissioner, so you're the co-commissioner, so you'd have to take over commissioner duties.
But. Yeah, maybe it just gets dissolved completely then.
Would that be a reason for a league to dissolve if one member actually won every single category?
How many times have you won the championship?
I think I'm at 5. We started this in 2004. You and I tied the first year, which is amazing. You and I started the league. We did not have the proclivity to understand that there could possibly be a tie in a roto league. So we ended up both sharing the championship, which is weird to say the least. But I think I'm now up to 5 championships.
Okay, this would be your 5th this year?
No, this would be 6th. Yeah.
And we started in 2004. So that's not, 6 over 20 years. All right. It's not as bad as it's not as annoying as I quite thought, but still
it's approaching Yankees territory.
It's definitely approaching I've got too much time on my hands territory. I'll tell you that.
I might be the only guy in the league without children, so that might explain part of it. But again, I need to point out, we do have a Cadillac league. We're not making transactions every day. We're essentially limited to 50 transactions per year, which works out to 2 a week. So we're not setting a lineup every morning, which is a big reason people hate fantasy baseball. And you and I avoided that to begin with. So I'm gonna hit back on that excuse. But
my team looked like it was gonna run away with things for a while there, and then everyone got I'm pulling the dub here, but I have so many players who aren't even on my team anymore because they all had season-ending fucking injuries.
I've got a couple of those, but not as many.
It sucks. Well, you have Ohtani, who sometimes your roster is not legal, sometimes it is. So when Ohtani's not in the pitching spot, you need to pick up a pitcher because you need a full.
I just left it empty.
Crew. Yeah, no, you can't. That's an illegal roster.
No, it's not. By definition, it's not an illegal roster. It's in. We set it up that way. I'm just working at a technically disadvantage because I don't have that player going.
But you have to have a minimum of 6 starting pitchers.
Active
on the roster.
No, you can have a maximum of 6 pitchers. Is how it works. That's how we don't need to debate the. So bylaws of our fantasy
just so you know, he's been cheating all year. So.
Well, I did say that having Shohei is potentially a cheat code, and we might have to ban him from the league next year just because it's such a huge advantage if you use him correctly. Although
I actually thought next year, to mix things up, we should probably do NL only next year, and then AL only the next year, and then NL only the next year.
That's interesting. We'll think about that. We could talk about that off air because I think we've already spent too much time. I called this the fantasy minute because I thought we'd only talk about it for a minute.
Well, you already had talked more than a minute, so it was out the door at that point. So
I'm trying to wrap this up, but
wrap it up for fuck's sake.
Right.
You started this. So.
I am an asshole. I really admit that.
100% right. You are 100% asshole right now.
I am 100%. I have never backed away from that. I've named all of our shit about being an asshole. So I at least
give
me credit for owning it. Well, let's wrap up this. Wow, this is going to be 2.5 hours, I think. I'll see how I can fit this all together. I think we're going to split off the Sox Type Thing into its own podcast once again to get this all to work. But thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for letting us get all this shit out that we've had built up over the last couple of weeks. It's a great show. I enjoyed this immensely. Good to talk baseball again with you. In the meantime, you
come back to our 20-minute show next week.
Yeah, might not be much. Might as well get it all out now because there might not be a whole lot to talk about between our teams. We'll see how the Cubs could progress. We'll see what the Giants do, but other than that, I'm not sure how much. Well, never know what the Sox might do next week. But
The Sox are only 13 games out now. They've gained a few games since
I was waiting for that.
Since they traded all that dead weight. So they may.
Exactly.
But just because this is all so long already, you might as well just get this out.
Who cares?
I forgot. Pete forgot. But the Sox kind of hold the Cubs' fate in their hands. They are playing Milwaukee the next 3 games, and then they go and play the Cubs.
Yeah, I know exactly how this is going to play out. So
yeah, the Sox are going to lose all 3 to Milwaukee, and then
every time,
and then sweep the Cubs at home.
You heard it here first. Yeah, we can totally see that coming. So thank you in advance for that. Appreciate that.
So we'll talk about that next week. So that's your preview for next week.
Beyond the anecdotal history of that, it seems like every year the Cubs and Sox split, and they split on the road. Whoever the road team is wins those local series. So I never understood that, but I have a feeling that's going to continue somehow, some way, even though it seems completely unlikely at this moment. All right, we are wrapping this up finally, mercifully. So you can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com and soxtypething.com. You can get our merchandise at aesthetics.shop, ASSTHETICS.shop. You can find us on social media. We're still calling it Twitter. Pete's at Sox Type Thing. I have Major League A-Holes, spelled kind of fucked up, but I spell it out below my name here. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram as well. You can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to finally declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Wordhole Media.